To our Northeast reporter, Phoebe Abrazizi. This is this terrible story about this detention centre in Durham. What have they discovered, Phoebe? Morning.
Morning, Ian. This is a harrowing report. It details decades of violence and humiliation, neglect behind the locked doors of Medomsley Detention Centre here in County Durham. It's 220 pages long. There are grim accounts of boys beaten as soon as they arrived, young men trying to break their own legs to get out of training, and sickening sexual abuse. The centre was open from 1961 until the late 80s. And in his report, Adrian Usher from the Prison and Probation Ombudsman said it was hell on earth.
Successive ministers and senior prison staff repeatedly used language such as robust, tough, and perhaps most pervasively of all, short, sharp, shock. Widespread physical abuse was present from the day Medomsley opened its doors until the day they closed in 1987, resulting in thousands of victims of physical abuse.
But Ian, what's most abhorrent is that the staff were perpetrating the abuse documented there by Adrian Usher, and it was known by authorities who ignored it and allowed it to continue for decades. Now, nearly 3,000 former inmates have come forward saying they suffered at the hands of prison officers between the 60s and the 80s. Randolph Trent is one of them. He was attacked at Medomsley by Neville Husband, who's been identified in this report as one of Britain's most prolific sex offenders, assaulting hundreds of young men. But Randolph told me he doesn't think the Ombudsman's report goes far enough and wants former staff and authorities held to account.
The inquiry didn't require anybody, you know what I mean? It asked people, would you come to this? All I have to say is no. And then what can you do? Nothing. The last 25 years, we've been fighting. Why? They knew all of this stuff prior to that. They knew it all. So why all this fighting all this time?
Randolph had been sent to Medomsley for just taking a coat from a car. The window was down and it was below zero outside. For that kind of offence today, he'd have served a community sentence at most. But the trauma from Medomsley has impacted his whole life, as it has thousands of the lads that were sent to the centre. The report concludes that successive wardens were either complicit or incompetent, and only a handful of staff have ever faced prison time for their role in the abuse. Neville Husband served only 6 years before his death in 2010. Allegations were being made for years, but police dismissed them without recording and would threaten young men that they'd be sent back to Medomsley if they persisted. Durham Police has apologised to the victims, and the Ministry of Justice also apologised on behalf of all governments, past and present. They vowed something like this can never happen again, Ian.
Do we know if any of the officers, Phoebe, at the detention centre are still working in the justice system?
Well, no, because it's such a historic account of abuse, only one of the wardens remains alive. He is incredibly elderly. I understand he contributed to the Prison and Probation Ombudsman's report. But when I've asked, I don't believe that he'll face charges for his role in this.
OK, thanks very much, Phoebe Abrazizi, who's LBC's North East reporter. Let's finish